We are going to run through my list of every single NFL team's most overrated player. Welcome into NFL Daily by Chat Sports. We have 32 teams, and that means 32 players that I think are a bit overrated for one reason or another, as training camp has already broken ground for some teams and will break ground for others in the near future. But before we look at my first group of overrated players, which team do you hate the most? I don't want to know which team you love. I want to know which team you cannot stand. Which team out there, if they lose on Sunday, might as well be as good as your team winning on Sunday. Give me that team down in the comment section. Now, let's start things off by going from AFC to NFC and beginning with the AFC East. Now, quick PSA, I don't care about your feelings. Your team's going to come up, and you're likely going to get triggered. But I've got Bills defensive tackle Ed Oliver as my overrated player up in Buffalo. Former top 10 pick, has been good, but it hasn't really looked like a top 10 pick. Bradley Chubb was a midseason acquisition for the Dolphins last year, and with Miami, he put up 2.5 sacks in 8 games and got a 5-year, $110 million contract extension. He needs to start this year off on the right foot. For the Jets, I went with Aaron Rodgers. We'll talk about that more in a second. And then for the Patriots, I went with JuJu Smith-Schuster, someone who I think always puts his name on the group project and has just been happy to be there. Did he win a Super Bowl last year for Kansas City? Absolutely not. But he got paid handsomely after doing so. But Aaron Rodgers is definitely the name that jumps out here because it wasn't too long ago he was a back-to-back MVP. But last year for the Green Bay Packers, Aaron Rodgers had the second lowest touchdown total as a starter in Green Bay for a full season. And he also had the second highest amount of interceptions of his NFL career last year. 26 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. For a lot of quarterbacks, those are good numbers. But for Aaron Rodgers, those are towards the bottom of the food chain. So I think Aaron Rodgers is going to follow the footsteps of Brett Favre. And maybe he gets off to a hot start. Hopefully he doesn't get injured for Jets fans' sake. But Rodgers, I think, is an overrated player at this point in his career. Moving on to the AFC North. For the Bengals, I went with tight end Irv Smith Jr., someone they added in free agency. He's never gone over 400 yards in his NFL career. He's constantly missed time. Yet Cincinnati thinks he's going to be a starting tight end. I don't buy it. For the Browns, I'll go with Denzel Ward. This is not a Denzel Ward sucks thing. This is a Denzel Ward is the second highest paid corner in the NFL. And he's probably top 10. I think he is top 10, but he's closer to 10 than 1. For the Ravens, it's Patrick Queen. He gets a lot of empty stats, empty calories. Yeah, he gets a lot of tackles, but he should probably get a lot more based on how the defense funnels it to him. And then for the Steelers, I went with Kenny Pickett. I am sure Pittsburgh fans are irate right now, but I do want to just show you some numbers because numbers don't lie. Numbers don't care about your feelings. And Kenny Pickett's rookie numbers look eerily similar to his backup Mitchell Trubisky's rookie numbers when he was in Chicago with the Bears. Both had a similar-ish completion percentage. 4-point difference for Kenny Pickett. Yards aren't drastically off. 7 touchdowns and fewer interceptions for Trubisky in the same amount of games. But some reason everyone is getting really drunk off the Kenny Pickett Kool-Aid. I'm not quite there yet. Moving on to the AFC West, starting in Denver. Randy Gregory got the bag last year in free agency. And then this past season, he produced a whopping 2 sacks in 6 games. He's got to show up. For the Chargers, I went with cornerback J.C. Jackson. Chargers fans, is he even starting this year? I don't think he is. I think this is an open training camp battle, and he is paid handsomely, and he might not even start week 1. For the Chiefs, it's Kadarius Toney. Without him, you might not win that Super Bowl. You probably don't win that Super Bowl, right? With the punt return to set up a touchdown and himself scoring a touchdown. But Toney is not a good player. Go look at his stats. Toney sucks. The only thing he's good at is claiming he got hacked on Twitter when he went out and put some pretty interesting voice memos in someone's inbox. So Toney, overrated. For the Raiders, I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. Now, this is going to be a bold, hot take. But you know what? I don't care. Look at Jacobs' numbers so far in his NFL career. He is the reigning NFL rushing leader, and bravo to him. But he got that from getting 340 carries. Still had a very good average of 4.9. But prior to that, 2 straight seasons of 4 yards or less, There was a reason why the Raiders did not pick up his fifth-year option at one point in time. I don't think Josh Jacobs is a top 3 running back like some people believe he is. I think he was a bit of a flash in the pan last year after getting 340 carries because Derek Carr sucked, and he cried about that halfway through the year. And then they had Jarrett Stidham fill in for the last couple of games in the year. But who do you think the better running back is, as we have a bit of a standoff here between these two teams? Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs? I would take Saquon Barkley any day that ends in the letter Y. But if you disagree, hey, it's called Chat Sports for a reason. Give me your opinions down in the comment section. On to the AFC South, starting with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to go with quarterback Anthony Richardson. I'll expand on that in just a moment. For the Jags, I'm going to go with Evan Ingram. He had a really good rookie year with the Giants, if you recall, former first-round pick. But after that, there's a reason why Giants fans were very frustrated with him. Lack of availability, not consistent, had cinder blocks for hands. He has a great season in Jacksonville. They overpaid him in my eyes. I think he's overrated. The Texans, Derek Stingley. Honestly, there's really no one on the Texans roster that can be overrated because no one's good on the Texans roster. I mean, they don't have any proven commodities, right? Will Anderson Jr., I think, is going to be great. C.J. Stroud's going to be good. But if you look at the Texans roster, there's no one on there that's got a big paycheck that's not living up to it. And Derek Stingley last year, despite being picked before Sauce Gardner, did not play like the number 1 cornerback of his rookie class. In fact, PFF ranked him as one of the worst cornerbacks in football. And then for the Titans, I went with Treylon Burks, the wide receiver, who unfortunately has to live up to the expectations of being the next A.J. Brown. And I don't know if many people have him super highly rated, but I think a lot of people are just assuming a breakout year is coming because he was a first-round pick that was dubbed to replace A.J. Brown. And after last year, 1 touchdown, less than 500 yards, I'm not very sold on that breakout season coming. But Anthony Richardson is an interesting one because he went top 5 in this past draft, and a lot of people compared him to Cam Newton. I don't remember Cam Newton throwing for 2,500 yards last year and completing just over 50% of passes. No, I remember Cam Newton winning a Heisman and winning a national championship with an offense that had 0 NFL talent around him. Anthony Richardson getting Cam Newton comps is laughable to me. He's got an incredible arm. He's super athletic, but there are a lot of guys that come out with incredible arms and super athletic. They don't always make it. There is so much more to being a quarterback than just having a bazooka attached to your right shoulder. So for that reason, I'm passing on Richardson. I think he's overrated. Now, if you have not subscribed to the channel, time to wake up, time to hit that sub button, because if you don't subscribe, your team's going to get the number 2 pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. That's the worst pick to have, probably, right? That means you were just 1 away from being the first overall pick and having all the cards, right? When the season's over, you want to be one of 2 teams. The team hoisting the Lombardi or the team with the first overall pick in the draft. So don't be the first loser. Hit that sub button down below and get the best NFL coverage here at Chat Sports. On to the NFC, starting in the East with the Commanders. Andrew Wiley comes over with Eric Bieniemy from Kansas City. This was a signing that got a lot of money for Mr. Wiley, and good for him for getting the bag, but I think he was the worst player on Kansas City's offensive line last year, and now he's being paid to be one of the best players in Washington. I don't see it happening. For the Cowboys, I went with Dak Prescott. I used to be a pretty big Dak stan and defender, but now he's just the king of the regular season. Haven't really seen it materialize in the postseason. Credit to him for getting past the Bucs, but that was a bad Bucs team, let's be honest. And a lot of people just thought they would wake up when the postseason rolled around. For the Eagles, I'm reaching here. There's not really an overrated player in Philadelphia. They're all very talented. It's a great roster. But I think Fletcher Cox is, probably not as good as maybe he once was. Still was productive last year, 7 sacks, but at this point, he's probably a bit more of a name than an actual producer. For the Giants, I rounded out with Daniel Jones. I don't understand what New York was thinking. Like, they got in bed way too quickly after just 1 decent season and a playoff win against the Vikings. I mean, I wonder if Giants fans and the Giants will look back and go, we won a playoff game, but at what cost? Because that sold us on Daniel Jones to 4 years, $160 million. And he never looks like a 4-year, $160 million quarterback. He threw 15 touchdowns last year, 10 touchdowns the season before that, 11 touchdowns in 2020. He's never really been available for a full season. Last year was the closest to it, playing 16 games. But Jones has had a good run of injuries throughout his career, and I'm just not a Daniel Jones believer, and he's paid to be like a top 10 quarterback, and he is far from it. On to the NFC North now, starting in the Windy City. For the Bears, I went with Chase Claypool. When the Bears traded for Chase Claypool, I audibly said out loud, that was a bullshit idea. That was a bad idea, and now we see why. Chase Claypool appears to be too busy doing fashion shows abroad than maybe getting ready for the upcoming season, because it's a pretty big year for Claypool, who has to show up or show out. For the Lions, they don't have a big overrated player in my eyes. They got a really good balanced roster, but Marvin Jones comes back to the Motor City, and I don't think he's going to be as good as his first stint was when he was in Detroit. He's coming off a bit of a down year in Jacksonville. For Green Bay, I went with Jordan Love. I know Packers fans want to believe he's going to be the next Messiah, just like how Favre passed the torch to Rodgers and now to Love, but it just feels a bit different this time, doesn't it? For the Vikings, I'm going to go with Alexander Mattison, the Dalvin Cook replacement in the backfield, because all of a sudden we're supposed to believe that Mattison is ready to be a starting running back in the NFL for a full season. He's always filled in nicely for Cook from time to time, but when you look at Madison's career, 1,600 yards off 401 carries, nice average of 4.1, 11 touchdowns. But I'm not exactly sold on Mattison being a starting running back in the NFL. Just because he's getting that chance right now in Minnesota doesn't mean he has that type of talent or level. And I'm just not a big buyer when it comes to Mattison being a starting running back this year for Minnesota. But speaking of Jordan Love, is he the guy? Right? Is Jordan Love going to continue this long, storied success up in the frozen tundra? Or are Packers fans going to experience what majority of the rest of the NFL has experienced, at least at some point in the last 20 to 30 years? Quarterback purgatory, quarterback hell, revolving door, a carousel, right? Really only Green Bay and New England had a long stretch without having to enter that type of headspace as a fan. We're going to find out this year if they are running into that issue. NFC West is the next one up to bat, and I started off in the San Francisco Bay Area with Eric Armstead, the defensive lineman, who is a very good run-stopping defensive tackle. He gets a lot of tackles for loss. He's great in that department. But a few seasons ago, he had 10 sacks. Last year, 0 sacks. For Arizona, I'm going to go with Marquise Brown. Just not a believer that he is a wide receiver one. I don't see it. For the Rams, Cam Akers. This is a quick PSA. Cam Akers is the Rams starting running back still. How? I don't understand. It was like 8 months ago, they were looking to move on from Cam Akers, and somehow he got a lot of dirt on Sean McVay and the rest of that front office, and they decided to hold on to him through the entire offseason and not find a replacement. For the Seahawks, this is going to upset our producer today, Tyler Smith's Seattle squad, but I'm going to go with quarterback Geno Smith. Why? Because when you look at the numbers, Geno had a phenomenal season last year in the Pacific Northwest, but I'm going to look at Geno Smith's stats here from 2013 to 2021, and I think that Geno is still deep inside. It might not even be that deep inside of Geno. That's what she said. But 34 touchdowns in 34 games played and 37 interceptions. Completion percentage 10 points plus lower than what he did last year in the first 9 years of his NFL career. So for that reason, I think you're going to see a Geno regression, and he'll get back closer to the mean. As for the NFC South, the Buccaneers have Devin White, one of the best blitzing linebackers in football, but he's not very good in coverage. He wants to get top 5 linebacker money, and the former 5th overall pick, he ain't going to get it. For the Falcons, A.J. Terrell really emerged on the scene. First-round pick out of Clemson. Strong first 2 years down in ATL. But last year, he took a step back. And I think A.J. Terrell is still a good corner. This is not an A.J. Terrell slander piece. I just don't know if he's top 10 like a lot of people dub him to be. For Carolina, it's Jeremy Chin from Southern Illinois. Was a huge fan of him coming out of Southern Illinois, Carbondale, I believe it is. But after a breakout sophomore campaign, he was a bit of a liability in the secondary last year for Charlotte. So I think he's probably going to find himself on the overrated list. And as for the Saints, it's got to be Michael Thomas. I could have gone with Derek Carr. I'm not a Derek Carr guy. But Michael Thomas, 3 straight seasons of less than 1,000 yards. 3 straight seasons of it being an absolute circus as to whether or not he's going to play for New Orleans. It appears to be all signs go for this year, but I'm sure an injury is inevitably going to pop up. That's just the Michael Thomas experience, so he's on my overrated list. But I was thinking about this. If you were the Saints, would you rather have Michael Thomas or T. Higgins? I think T. Higgins is better than Michael Thomas at this point. I know that Michael Thomas, not too long ago, was an NFL record holder for receptions in a season and well over 1,000 yards, right? The slant boy was getting all the targets, all the grabs, lots of touchdowns. But I think T. Higgins has passed him at this point. Let me know if you guys disagree. You can go with MT for Michael Thomas, but I'm typing TH for T. Higgins. That will do it for today's edition of NFL Daily. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the content, consider subscribing down below. We keep you guys in the know all year long.